Hello, Tiger. Welcome to ConstantV, Episode 5, Turpentine Creek, Part 2. We've discussed the Lion's Carol, how it's important to be consistent, even when others are unresponsive, or our creativity is unseen. How humans are busy raising small cats, underestimating their growing power until it's too late. But we hear you now. We've been creating a while, being raised in an unfamiliar home, where perhaps your inner growl, our song, it's haunted us because it's been trapped in your heart. Once our potential for life was discovered, we were released into the jungle. There, the chaos, the churn in our stomach. To turn, it meant to believe our bodies were too weak for our own pumped blood. So we walked and ran in starvation, and that's when we slowed to a halt and were captured a second time, released into Turpentine. But it's okay. The marks we lost when our fur was shaved also exist on our skin. Like logic and feeling working together, Will Together Part 2. So keep us warm, hold within true. Listen to a device that was created to end wars, a cryptological code that discovered how our internal patterns develop, how our stripes came to petition and create regenerative medicine. The poles that bend these igloo-shaped tents outside your cage can be taken apart. They hold stretching rope that can be used to climb across the creek. If you fall, swim sideways to avoid being sucked into the undertow. Climb out, roll downhill, look up and see the color of indigo. It's deep within the layers and lobes of the sky. It's mystery, the love to believe, that enables us to listen. Again, welcome. That was a piece I wrote this afternoon to Kai Engel's song, River. I chose to do a bit of a music bit because I feel it's important to go with flow, and sometimes you need something externally like a song to release your Lion's Carol or realize your patterns, your tiger stripes. They exist on your skin as well as within you. And we're all very regenerative as well as ever-changing, but we're also under the same sky, on the same grass, in the color of indigo in our head at midnight, in the color green to give us feeling and perhaps voice. So we've talked a little about the science of creativity, and I've been focusing more on the logic of it. But the truth is that feeling, putting into your creative project, the feeling, it's so important. Because that feeling comes across every logical medium. You can think your way to enlightenment, but it'll take a very long time to reach it if you do it that way. It's all about the tiger's perception of his surroundings that enables it to be so quick. And this has been a realization I've forgotten because it's so addictive to grasp in between the lines and think your way through it over the years. When you do so, you're creating unnecessary layers for the sake of making a story. And life is complicated as it is. Most of this weekend, I've been finishing a memoir by Jan Robbins. We're going to be interviewing next week. She is the wife to one of the most popular fiction novelists of all time, Harold Robbins, who sold over 750 million copies of fiction in 42 different languages. Her memoir, Harold and Me, My Life, Love, and Hard Times with Harold Robbins. It's again, Harold and Me, My Life, Love, and Hard Times with Harold Robbins. It's very interesting. It's a memoir about the person. And I think it's very important to read about the person without personal judgment like Harold did, and let the readers decide. And you really get to do so via her personal account, her story, her voice. It is a really interesting and easy read, I think. It's somewhat long. It's about 300 pages long, but I read 100 pages just yesterday. And that was in about 4 hours, and I'm not a very fast reader. So, Harold. Well, for one, I really like the guy because one of the traits that he has is to always be in the moment and with the current feeling. And his books were so intense because of his real life intensity and curiosity. And he chose his book subjects based on what he wanted to learn more about. Jan says in her book, he searched below the surface, tearing off the shroud of secrecy that bound many professions, and he exposed hypocrisy without judgment. And at the same time, he never lost his voice. This is me saying, that throughout the book you learn that he wrote his stories based on the people that he knew and the circumstances that he went through. He was a street talker because he grew up in tough circumstances. But he also laughed with his entire body. And he talked straight about people's corruptness. And it's funny because his books are based on characters that are these extrapolations of several people he knew. But the people he knew, and it's safe to say that the people he knew, a lot of them were very egotistical. It's just, once he became more popular, he hung around in a more super ego Hollywood A-list type of crowd. And he lost a lot of friends because they all thought that that he was talking about them whenever he created these characters. So, through Harold's books, he predicts a lot of facts that ended up happening. In his fiction, he predicted how the Japanese auto business was going to take over America, and how we're going to have some of the problems with terrorism in the Middle East. One of his last books was The Descent from Xanadu, which Jan actually helped write. And it's about immortality and the progression of age, the age business, or the anti-age business within a multi-billion-dollar industry. And it was written in the 80s. And I really liked the premise because, now I have yet to read the book, but according to this memoir, immortality is actually finding out that true immortality is doing what you love. And I felt that was pretty powerful. And Jan met Harold whenever he was 66. So he had a lifetime of knowing a lot of celebrities and collecting lots of assets, hiring lots of staff. Fortunately, having a lot of taxes due. And the memoir talks about how Jan starts working for Harold as his executive assistant and is helping him regain his speech after what turns out to be a stroke. And Jan's social company helps him do that. But despite these problems, you really see Harold still as an individual that he had always been. He's very courageous, very imaginative, always making jokes. And unlike many women that a best-selling fiction writer Jan works, that best-selling fiction writer has in his life. And he went through 2 other wives and had an open relationship with his second wife before him and Jan married. Jan works for Harold for the sake of business and turns down a lot of fun excursions to do it. And the very last part of the book is really heartfelt because throughout, Harold isn't sure, Jan isn't sure whether or not he can make the payments for his family and friends and staff, etc. The only way he's going to be able to do so is to write another book. That's really the way that he had always done things. He'd always gone through crises, paying for them with new books. And anyhow, it was unsure whether or not he'd be able to do so due to the stroke and his brain activity. So I hope that you pick up Harold and Me. It's online. You can find it at the bookstore. And I hope that you're able to hear a first-hand account from Jan Robbins herself. It's just unbelievable, the ideas that Harold has before they came into fruition, and to learn about the life of such a great guy. I'm really looking forward to next week. I'm not ending this episode with a song like I usually do, but instead we'll leave you with your own. This is the end of Turpentine Creek and a saga of constant vicissitude, ConstantV. You can continue listening at ConstantV.com, where I've posted all the other episodes. My apologies for having a contact page on there. I'm working through that. But we'll take a break next week. Take a break from my vicissitude and go into a special interview with Jan Robbins. So, until then, go get 'em.